The Federal Bureau of Investigation, or FBI, has admitted most of its analysis of hair samples in criminal cases were flawed. It happened during a 2-decade period before 2000 when FBI began using DNA techniques instead. CCTV's Daniel Ryntjes tells us more.
So your grandfather?
At the age of 18, Kirk Odom was found guilty of multiple offences in a crime involving the rape and armed robbery of a woman in Washington, D.C.
This lack of justice. Justice is, well, you know, justice is blind anyway, so, but that don't mean the people have to be. Maybe they're afraid to look into it.
He spent 22 years in jail and 8 years on parole with continuous pressure to admit his guilt.
It really made me angry because I had to go through therapy. I had to take polygraphs, and they wanted me to confess and say that I did the crime. You know, but I just kept telling them no. They even threatened to put me back in jail. I told them, just do what you gotta do.
The Public Defender Service of the District of Columbia proved his innocence after obtaining DNA analysis on the original samples, which revealed the assailant was another man.
A very powerful moment, very powerful. Something powerful like that to bring me, you know, to tears, for me to drop to my knees at that moment. It's, oh my goodness.
Kirk's exoneration in 2012 contributed to a recent review of thousands of such cases going back more than 2 decades by the FBI, which has concluded that more than 90% of hair analyses were flawed. 35 were death penalty cases in which 9 defendants were executed and 5 died while on death row, according to the FBI.
People waited, kept as animals in cages, or taken into death chambers, while the FBI stood in the way of its duty. We know there's a problem, we hear there's a problem, we've investigated the problem, we agree there's a problem, and then didn't tell anyone.
Forensic scientist Dr. Frederick Whitehurst joined the FBI crime lab in the 1980s and says he tried to get the agency to change its methods. By the mid-1990s, he made those concerns public and then left the agency after reaching a financial settlement with the FBI. Later, he began fighting for the case files to be made public in order to inform those who may have been falsely imprisoned.
And at the end of this, we ask ourselves, this is one simple discipline. The FBI Crime Laboratory has many different scientific disciplines. The culture of that laboratory allowed hair analysis to go uncorrected for at least 3 decades. What does that mean for the other disciplines? It's frightening.
The FBI says there will now be an independent investigation of FBI laboratory protocols, practices and procedures to determine how this occurred and why it was allowed to continue for so long. The agency says it's continuing to examine cases and inform defendants where errors have been made, while encouraging states to do their own review of thousands of cases where hundreds of examiners were trained by the FBI in the same flawed techniques. Daniel Ryntjes, CCTV, Washington.